Every time I hear the word savvy, I think about Pirates of the Caribbean. You savvy?
Are you savvy?
Are you savvy? But savvy is kind of important, especially when you're talking about political savvy. Not
Right.
like politics savvy.
Right. Not politics.
Still, something very valuable. Almost like it can help you with your career. Maybe it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
You savvy? Hello and welcome to the Geeks and our presentation of Geeks Assemble. Level up your 9 to 5 on 95. I'm Javier.
And I'm Karen.
And together we are
the
Geeks. We get together every Thursday to talk a little bit about getting in and getting ahead in government. And this week we're talking about the famed concept, political savvy.
Political savvy. What is political savvy?
Oh, what is political savvy? Exactly. From my experience, it's just understanding the lay of the land, the terrain, what influences what an individual might be thinking. Having a good understanding of your surroundings could help you when you're managing your next steps.
It's a good way to explain it. I always think of it as like miscongeniality.
Miscongeniality.
Or Mr. or whatever you identify as, but congeniality.
Sure. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the movie there for a second.
Or the movie.
Sandra Bullock.
Or the movie.
Such a cool one.
Gotta love a movie where there's a
reference for April 25th?
Oh, well, that too, yes.
Yeah, and also an awesome FBI agent. And I think the overall understanding about, political savvy is her understanding about what's going on in, the whole crime investigation that she's trying to figure out and the whole pageant.
Right, but I think in the beginning she was so focused on kind of in her, with her blinders on a little bit,
right,
that not until she kind of learned more to develop her relationships with the people around her,
of course,
and get that emotional intelligence, and that those people skills, was she able to succeed.
Yes, the people skills. Yeah, I think that was another movie like Adam Sandler. You don't have what they call the people skills. It's such a good movie too. Well, anyhow, all of this stuff actually does make sense because we're talking about how you can use political savvy. And again, it's just this overall idea about how you can manage things. And in fact, the NIH Office of Human Resources describes political savvy as the ability to exhibit confidence and professional diplomacy while effectively relating to people at all levels, internally and externally.
Wow, did you just memorize that?
Memorized the whole thing. I know we had a nice little screen that covered it and everything, but believe me, I have the whole thing memorized.
But that's a great way to explain it, because it's one of those things where you hear it a lot, especially as you kind of turn the corner from entry-level employee, as you start thinking about leadership. You start to hear a lot about political savvy, and many people are like, what is it all about? I'm not into politics. And
right,
so it's not really about politics, but it's about how to navigate through your, like you said, work environment.
Yeah. And even at a point where if you're not in a management or leadership position, it's good to know why you're doing what you're doing, because it's part of the bigger picture. Understanding those connections is really important. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can really use political savvy for your advantage. So Karen, what's the first one?
So the first one is empathy goes a long way.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and the bigger concept of empathy isn't necessarily like sympathy, where you feel bad for the other person or you feel their emotions. Empathy really is at least you just understand their perspective or what's really.
You're not being an empath.
You're not being an empath. Exactly. Like
Right?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Empathy.
Yeah. Having that awareness and understanding of things. For instance, if you understand like why your boss might be feeling a little frustrated at the moment, or a demand or a care and concern that really came down the chain for them, and then that then came to you, you can understand the context of why this is all happening. So basically placing yourself in the other person's shoes.
Having that emotional intelligence.
Yes, yes, emotional intelligence is great, and I think I had a huge hair like right in my eye. So speaking of empathy and wearing other people's shoes, Karen, what are your thoughts about wearing other people's shoes, especially the cool shoes that you wear?
Well, I typically can't wear other people's shoes, but depends on the shoe.
Exactly. It depends on the shoe. But yeah, just understanding the other person's perspective, some of the challenges that they might be experiencing. And I think that that's a great coaching moment there as well, because you never know where the other person is. And so if you are interpreting the situation from your perspective, like, oh, this person is so upset at me, the way that they acted, I feel so terrible right now. But if you're using empathy, then you can understand perhaps why the other person was acting the way that they were. And just because they're bringing that energy to you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to carry that energy as well. You can make that decision to say, okay, I observe it, but I don't need to carry it.
I hear your question and I refuse to answer. What is that from Arrested Development? What did she say?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, really, I mean, if someone is having a challenging day and they take it out on you, well, yeah, it's unfortunate that that had happened, but that doesn't mean that you have to carry that with you or that you're going to allow that to change what's going on with you. We get to decide what we want to hold on to and what we don't want to hold on to. Karen, just one last thought about empathy, though. I'm curious from your perspective because of how you've been able to manage your career and grow into so many different levels. What role do you think empathy has played for you?
It's played a huge role just because I think being able to foster relationships and trust among coworkers, peers, supervisors, team members, I think it's something where without that, I don't think you can succeed. Not
Right.
truly succeed. I don't think, but for me, I think it's helped a lot, and it's just something like you said. You're just aware, and I try to think of that a lot as far as putting myself in someone else's position,
Mhm.
even if it, for whatever reason, I'm frustrated with a leadership decision, like taking that pause, taking a step back, and trying to think through, well, what are they having to deal with? And not taking it so personally.
Right.
So,
Definitely. I think all of that makes sense. And I think really what I hear when you say that is this idea about authenticity. Because if you're using your empathetic senses, if you will, to understand what's going on,
my
you're
spidey
really
sense.
like empathy spidey sense. Then you're able to establish a better connection with the person. And that means that the relationship is strengthened. And as we all know, I mean, it's all about relationships. It
Mhm.
really is. So that's good. Yeah, empathy is a great key to political savvy. What's another one?
Another one is know the terrain.
Right. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that at the beginning. So, like, what's the environment? What are the characteristics that are kind of
Culture.
the culture? Right. I mean, if you're like in a staff meeting and you see like a new priority or an objective or concern, or perhaps something that came out in the media, being a public servant and working in government, sometimes you see stuff like impacting and influencing in the media. Like there's a news report or something is happening and it kind of like trickles down to kind of where you are. I used to work in an area where we did a lot of research and development stuff. And every time there was a new issue or concern that would come up, Congress would feel very motivated to address it, to demonstrate to the public that they're being responsive and trying to help everything. And then all of a sudden, funds would appear in a supplemental funding amount for our organization to spend in addressing that particular issue or concern. So it's kind of like this ripple effect there as well. Knowing the
Mhm.
terrain is super important there as well.
Right. And then you start to learn to forecast a little bit when things like that come out, and you're like, oh, all right, we better plan for X, Y, and Z because this is bound to happen.
Exactly. Another interesting thing is like performance plans. So typically, your average person in government and federal government is going to be on the calendar timeline. Others are on the fiscal year, especially those in the senior executive service. So their performance plans really are coming up towards the end of the fiscal year. So if all of a sudden, your supervisor or your supervisor saying, "Oh, we got to do this, we got to do
I
that,"
got to get this done by 9:30.
exactly.
Why
September 30.
9:30?
Hmm.
Oh,
Oh, that's right.
performance
Performance
plan.
plans. Exactly. So yeah, managing all of that is, I think, an important thing. Also, think like, what are the characteristics of your organization? Like, there are certain cycles or seasons of things in the financial community and the acquisitions or procurement community. People are spending money like crazy. Like the end of the fiscal year, all of a sudden, people magically they have different chairs, they have different computers or laptops and things that were needed, but they just happen to show up, right at that particular time.
Well, and lately we have CRs, continuing
Continue, yeah.
resolutions, for multiple months. So by the time we get a full appropriation, many times it is towards the end of the fiscal
Oh
year, and
gosh,
we
yeah,
have to
that's so true.
get these funds used. So
And the
um,
rest of the year, somehow we're just like hobbling on, trying to make sure that things work, right? Keeping the lights
um,
on in the organization.
really are.
Well, as long as central costs, including salaries and benefits, and our personal favorite training happens, then that's always a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced any challenges with knowing the terrain that perhaps would be helpful for others to think about?
I think when I was at the State Department, it was very interesting because you go into it and it's a organization, right? Just like any other federal agency. But mine was on a campus because it was the Foreign Service Institute, and so it was a different environment completely. It was a little bit more laid back. Again, it
Hmm.
was more like a campus, and you just
Like an
had,
educational
yeah,
institution.
educational institution.
Mhm.
So you had a lot of the instructors who were from all over the world, different cultures. It was just incredible. And so getting used to that type of environment. And then I go to the Department of Justice, which was completely different, and had to kind of learn the terrain there, and how to interact with everybody, because
Oh,
I
of
was used
course.
to
Yeah.
this campus feel and just having,
Good.
Christmas parties with all of these different cultures
Right.
and getting to
Right.
taste all the different foods from across the world. And um,
Because that's the type of things that we're taught.
right,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And then going to being a contractor in the other organization and not being invited.
It's a little different.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, so really kinda know the terrain, know what's, around you, understand kind of like how that impacts and influences how people are able to function in the organization. This is like a really key thing with political savvy. I mean, think to yourself, if you're trying to work with someone or you're trying to develop a partnership, what's important for them?
what's in their performance plan, right? What's in your leadership's performance plan? Because then you're
Exactly.
going to know this is what they're expected to complete.
Mhm.
What is your role in that to help them accomplish that?
Exactly. What can you do to help them? So rather than showing up and saying, I need, it's rather than that saying, well, I understand that this is
Marsha,
something that
Marsha,
you need.
Marsha.
Exactly. It's all about me. You have to process my request first.
All right, Jan.
It's so funny.
Don't be a Jan.
Don't be a Jan. Yeah, actually, exactly right. Think about how you can help other people. And that really helps you with your political savvy and understanding things because they have their requirements, their timelines, and all of that. And if you can help them help you, everyone wins because they're able to get what they need done. You can get your stuff done too. So that's a great thing.
Make it sound so easy. So difficult.
Yeah. But that's kind of part of the growth process, right? It takes years of time and coaching to kind of get to that point, and it's always a learning thing because the terrain always changes. The world's
Mhm.
always changing. We have new political leadership that are coming in and out in the organization, new requirements, because government's on the cutting edge of things. So we have to be able to monitor and manage. And again, those relationships, as long as we have solid relationships, we're able to manage through it.
Mm.
Okay, so those are the two things. What's the last one?
I think this one might be my favorite one.
Oh, here we go.
Maintaining relationships. So be a value, like you were mentioning,
Mhm.
ask for help, ask how you can help,
Right.
and more importantly, don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. Yeah, absolutely. Relationships are super important. And sometimes, yes, it could be frustrating. You can have some challenges.
No comment.
Yeah, these things kind of like pop up. And it's okay, it happens. It's just how well do you manage all of that? And I'll be honest, I have some challenges with all of that as well. We all do. We're humans. But really having the opportunity to connect with others and maintain the relationship helps us manage everything. So this way, it's not like where, hey, you're on good speaking terms with the person, and then you never see them for like 6 months, or you never reach out, or you never, say hi in any way, or you're never cordial. And now all of a sudden, when you need something, then you show up saying, "Hey, I need this." That doesn't come across as well.
Yeah, be like, end of the budget season, and I need some training dollars.
Hmm.
So then you start being nice to
The training
somebody.
coordinator, and
Hmm.
exactly.
Right.
So we were in an organization. Karen and I actually used to work in an organization, and there was one person that I had worked with for some time. Never really spoke with him and everything, but all of a sudden, this idea about office moves came up, and there was a potential that this person could have the spot that I was sitting in. And all of a sudden, they would show up and, oh, hey, how are things? And, oh, let's look at the view from here and what's going on. And wait, let me get my tape measure and see if I can measure, for the new curtains that I'm going to put in. Oh, it wasn't that bad, but still, kind of an interesting time. And I'm sure, you guys could really recall something like that happening as well. You might even be kind of chuckling to yourself, kind of like how Karen is, where you've experienced something like that. Well, ask yourself, how did that feel? What were you feeling at that time about the other person? Do you want that feeling or thought to be something that is of you? Do you want to be that person? So Karen, like managing relationships, what's one of the best things that you do to keep up relationships?
I don't know. You always ask me these questions, and I don't know what the best thing I do or how things are perceived. I guess one of the things I do enjoy is just, when I am interacting with people, being present, not focusing on other things, what's going on out the window, what's, on my computer, trying to focus on the person in front of me and listen, not to respond. So I think that would be.
Listen to listen, not to just respond.
Mhm.
You see, Karen, that's why I asked the question. Did you guys see that? She was like, "Oh gosh, I don't know what I do," and then she thinks, and then brilliance just like emanates from her. And it's so true. Yeah, being present, because we could have 1,000 things in our mind, and we're thinking that this person has whatever information, approval, process, what have you, in their control. And if we think of them as like a widget in the process that can be manipulated to get what you want, well, then that's not developing a good relationship. But
Right.
being present and connecting with the person as a human being is a great thing to do.
Well, I think, and that's the key thing with political savvy. It's not manipulation. It's not conniving. Yes, there's a little bit of strategy to it, but it's not supposed to be manipulation of any kind.
Right.
It's building those relationships and just being aware of your environment, of the culture, of the interworkings of your organization and the people within it to be able to get the job done.
I love it. Absolutely right. Exactly. We're not trying to take advantage. We're just trying to get the work done in the best way that we can. And then, really, at the end of the day, whatever assignment that you're working on, it's super important, of course. But years from now, are you really going to remember how important that item was? Or are you going to remember the experiences that you had with the people that you had a chance to work with? Later on, you may understand like why the person was the way that they are, but are you going to remember them positively? And then, like in career growth, it's amazing how often we run into the same people in work on the way up and on the way down.
Which
So,
is so important because when you're up there and when you treat those that may be reporting to you like, I'm trying to be very politically correct about it.
yeah,
But when
well,
you,
because you have some savvy, you understand the terrain of where we are.
right, when you treat people in a way that makes them feel not valued, then chances are sometimes, like you said, on your way down to do something else, they might be, you know, holding the power,
Exactly.
and they
And
won't forget that.
it can be just small influence to a decision maker. Oh, yeah, I remember I had the chance to work with that person. They were a real jerk. And that's something that the hiring manager is going to be like, wow, so I trust this person's opinion. And they're telling me that this is how this applicant is actually, coming across and how they treated them. I don't want to have that in my organization or have my people treated badly. So I'm going to trust what this person says.
Right. I think you had that or a very similar interaction where a organization that we both worked at, somebody came back to you who was not very nice to you in that organization. And all of a sudden you're in charge of,
Budgets,
contracts
yeah,
and
yep.
for a federal agency. And they're like, oh, you need some support. You want
Yeah.
to go with our
Hey, how
program?
have you been? Great to see you again. How are things? And as if like, we'd had lunches together all the time and we're the best of
But the
friends.
tables had turned, and all of a sudden, yeah. So and it's noticeable, right?
Yeah.
People notice those types of things. So and remember them.
It's funny because I'm pretty sure you guys know what we're talking about, and that's managing everything. This is the political savvy that we're talking about. So develop good relationships with people. That's very important. So the three things that we talked about today. What was the first one?
The first one was empathy.
Yes, empathize with those that are around you. Understand their needs, concerns, where they're coming from. Absolutely.
Know the terrain.
Know the terrain is the second one.
And know that the map is not the territory.
The map is not the territory. Understand what the truth is, the ground truth about stuff. Manage it that way. Absolutely. What are the needs, concerns that are compelling the individual that you're trying to work with, and understand how to best help them.
And finally, it's maintain your relationships.
Yes. Absolutely. Like when you have the opportunity to, be nice to people.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you have to constantly keep in contact with everybody, but when you do have those interactions, make them quality and valuable interactions rather than fleeting and, you're just in it for whatever you want.
Right.
Because it comes through.
And it's not like you need to take, 30 minutes strolling over there to their office with a cup of coffee and, having a conversation
Have
with them.
lunch every week. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But just, be genuine, be you, and really have the chance to allow them to be themselves as well. And like Karen said, be present. Super important. Okay, so we hope you enjoyed those ideas on how to best manage political savvy in your organization, but also in your career. So now it's time for another fun part of our show, questions from the Gov Geekdom. So if you're interested in having any of your questions answered here on the show, please feel free to reach out to us. You can come to our website, thegovgeeks.com. We have a nice little section where you can type in a question, send it to us, and we'll include it here on the show. Also, if you have any others that you wanted to include on social media, put in a comment, make a post, share something with us in direct message or something.
Use hashtag GovGeekdom.
Hashtag GovGeekdom, hashtag GovGeek. We're all over that. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We haven't posted on Instagram in a little bit, but yeah, you can reach us out there definitely as well. But definitely LinkedIn and YouTube. That's another great place to run. Anyhow, so Karen, what's the first question that we have?
So the first one is, any tips for the tell me about yourself question?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's like one of the first thing that you have in almost every interview. Oh, great. Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right. And if you're not prepared for that, it's kind of like, season 9 of RuPaul's Drag Race and you still don't know how to sew,
Exactly. These are just the things that you should know at this point. You can basically totally expect to get some form of this question. Tell us about yourself. So what are some of the best ways that you've answered? Tell us about yourself.
First off, you want to start off with your name, maybe.
Right.
Introduce yourself.
I'm RuPaul.
Where you're from. I usually start with a dedicated public servant, originally from Texas, born in Tennessee. And now I reside here with my family in DC, where I serve the public and love to go to work every day to serve a greater purpose.
Absolutely. So it's contextual. It allows more information to be established. It's also great because it connects to values and what Karen really appreciates. So then later on in her responses, she's able to tie her responses to her core values about public service and how she's really committed to the mission. And you can essentially do the same thing as well. One of the things that I like to do is to have kind of like a 3-part section. So the first is like a bumper sticker. The second is more details about yourself. And then the last is how you connect it to the organization. So, so tell us about
and
yourself
why you're here,
and why you're there, why you care about the position.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a financial analyst with X amount of years of experience. Some of my most known accomplishments include, and then to say, while those have been fantastic, I'm really excited about this opportunity because I'd like to do this and I think I can do that for this organization. Something kind of like that.
Simple.
Simple, absolutely. And it's also honest and authentic.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure you're authentic. So don't try to force too much in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or try to memorize it or, just natural.
Natural. Natural is what it's all about. Like wearing a bow tie. Supernatural. Okay. What's the next question?
So the next question is, what is fear of success?
Oh, such a great question.
Is that like fear of missing out?
Like FOMO? Yeah, a little bit of that. So fear of success is really interesting. Like basically, you may find yourself procrastinating or not really doing something because you're not afraid that you can't accomplish something, but you're afraid of what's going to follow. For instance, if you do great work and things are fantastic, their supervisor is going to be like, great job, nice. Let me give you more things. Let me give you this assignment again. Or if you're afraid of like public speaking and knowing the terrain, one of the answers is going to be, this is fantastic. Hey, I'd like you to present this topic at the next all hands meeting. And you're like, no. So there's certain things that you can think to yourself, why am I procrastinating? Why am I feel some anxiety about this? It's not so much about the task or the activity. It's about everything else that's attached to it. So examining that could be a really great way of figuring out perhaps if it is a fear of success that you might have.
And you could be self-sabotaging yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, like perhaps you're not really ready for the next thing. For instance, you're a high performer and they know that you're doing great work and everything, and they're going to want you to be a supervisor. But you don't want to be a supervisor. You like just doing your work. And so you don't want to have to worry about managing other people. So if you self-sabotage a little bit, then maybe they'll say, well, maybe this person isn't ready for management just yet. And, it's just a strategy. Sometimes we do it unconsciously as well, not even realizing it. We might do this. It might also come from just this idea of like self-worth or value. Like I've always seen myself a certain way. And therefore, if I do these things, I'm not going to meet those perceived ideas about what that is. So if I, don't do it well, then I'm going to stay with my own identity and who I am.
That's kind of like stems from my like imposter syndrome.
Right.
Where they're going to find me out that I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe if I just manage it this way, they'll never find out because I'll never have the chance to be in front of them to investigate a little bit more. And that's totally natural to have imposter syndrome. Honestly, everyone has it. It's just something that we all cope with and we all have as part of our experiences. But Karen, obviously, every week I demonstrate how so much of the stuff that you've done is just really great, or you demonstrate it, your accomplishments and everything. So how do you manage imposter syndrome?
I think that's a topic for another show.
That's great. She just like perfectly baited everyone, including myself. Like, I'm excited. I don't know. I think maybe we can tune in next week to find out more information.
Maybe.
Maybe. We'll see what happens when we turn off the cameras. So yeah, that is our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, go to our website, thegovgeeks.com. We're happy to have sessions, discussions. If you sign up for our community newsletter or our outreach messages that we send, you also get access to a free course that we have. It's on resume writing. You get ourselves for a little over an hour helping to go through how to write a resume, templates, other materials, links, all of that great stuff. And all you have to do is sign up at thegovgeeks.com. So, Karen, today we've talked about political savvy. And every week we have this wonderful moment of illumination. So I'm curious for this week, what are your closing thoughts on political savvy?
And every week there's so much pressure on me to do a closing remarks.
What, fear of success? Look at this.
Exactly, fear of success. I did it one time and all of a sudden I do it every single time.
Well, yeah.
No, I think it's just political savvy may sound like a very intimidating term or phrase, but it's really not. It's, again, building relationships putting yourself in other people's shoes, being present, and not being a jerk. So knowing those things will help you to be successful throughout your career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.